Hi everyone, welcome to the Steel City Grid. My name is Dan.
And I'm Colin, coming to you not quite live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where we're having our first major tournament of the year here.
This is the 2025 Pittsburgh District Championship. We have about 20 folks coming in for this event, and we had people from all over joining us, from Boston, from Toronto, Baltimore, Ohio, and of course, Pittsburgh's own trying to defend the title. On our left, we have Wenjong, who's currently playing Asa Group, and on our right, we have Diagonell representing Nova.
Always interesting to see a Nova player. Noelle was also playing Ampere, right?
That's correct. She's been brewing up some really interesting decks on both sides. And she's a newer player, but she's brought a lot of energy and excitement to the Pittsburgh meta these last few months. So we're really happy to have her. And you never quite know what you're up against with her Nova or Impair.
So we see a run on R&D here. Looks like that is a fully op on top, Asa's signature card.
Asa's in a really interesting spot in the meta right now. There are several different decks that top players are bringing to events. Jai, I think, is probably the most notable of the Asa players, and he's been innovating a lot, but he's not the only one. So it remains to be seen whether this deck will be like a tempo Asa, something more like combo or click taxing, or perhaps even something else entirely.
Yeah, it's possible that this is similar to the core damage deck that the King brought. I was the King's Oracle for this tournament, so I wasn't playing, but he brought a really interesting core damage Asa. We'll see here what looks like that is a Iru installed. Lets you run archives to see cards in R&D, and a discard of... I can never remember what that card is named, but it's the one that lets you see more cards when you run R&D.
I believe that's a Nyasha.
Nyasha, that's right. Looks like Wenjong firing a Rashida there. Getting a little bit of money and some cards.
For what I remember, Diagonell's Nova deck focuses a lot on running centrals for multi-access and trying to make the most of it. So it looks like she's starting to set up there and put some pressure and some threats on the table. Eru, at the moment, is only offering an additional, only offering to see one card on R&D when you run archives. But as soon as threat 3 hits, it'll see 2 on R&D, and I have a feeling we'll see more cards that can capitalize on that.
And here we have Wenjong playing the first fully op of the game, probably the first of many. Looks like 3 different uses here. There was a draw, another draw, and take money for the last one, looks like.
Fully operational is certainly the power card in Asa, and I'm not sure where else it's going to find a home once rotation hits in a few months. But for now, almost every form of Asa is looking to build out multiple servers, usually only defended by 1 ice, and then putting either some tempo assets inside or sneaking through some defenses.
Yeah, and even just 1 extra server, if you have a scoring remote and then 1 extra server holding your Rashidas or your Spin Doctors or a cohort or a campaign, Nico or Marilyn, that's enough. That's already better than, if you're just taking credits, it's already better than a hedge fund, and you have so much more flexibility.
Definitely. And I also feel like there aren't as many cards for corporations that draw quite as much as Fully Op can. If you find yourself in a sticky situation or looking for a particular card, you can easily draw 4 with a single click that I don't think a lot of other corporations have access to.
Yeah, absolutely. In the dreaded Asa versus Issa matchup, at least dreaded by commentators, that really helps you to be able to recover from all the sabotage. So it looks like we have Noelle here or Diagonell, trying to decide what to do, and I think in their hand I saw a Divide and Conquer, very interesting card. Lets you run archives to see both HQ and R&D. It doesn't count as a run on each of those, but it lets you see cards across the board, which if you're playing a multi-access deck, definitely seems like could result in a lot of extra accesses, especially once Wenjong ties down all the other servers.
Play something, but that's
Absolutely. We just saw Diagonell make a run on R&D and see what looked like a big deal off the top. That might give us a clue as to what type of ace deck Wenjong is running. Big deal is usually a nice way to score out a pesky 5-3. So we'll see if he can manage to amass enough credits to make use of that.
And I think the 5-3 that we generally try to score out with that is probably salvo testing. Like if I had to take a shot in the dark here, it doesn't seem quite worth it to try to push out an Ikawa with it. Like it's a way to close the game, but I don't know. I feel like there's better ways to spend 17 credits than scoring out a Ikawa.
Absolutely. I mean, Ikawa has the defensive text on it that says you must spend a click and 2 credits in order to steal it. And while that seems like a simple ability, it does so much work in defending against random accesses on centrals, as well as making it much harder to get into heavily guarded servers with things like Managarm or even gatekeepers that can be rezzed on the crucial turn.
In Noel's hand, it looks like we have a Palangi, a Copulation, and on Wenjong's side, we have yet another server coming down here. A little surprised not to have seen any of the servers be res by now. Usually you'd see a Nico or something like that. Could be a Spin Doctor. There we go with a 4th server. We have another fully opt, so 4 different uses here, starting off with a draw. Another draw. Wenjong is digging for something, not sure what yet. And then probably just money for the rest, yeah.
That is interesting to see. Perhaps he's digging for some of those tempo assets if he hasn't found them yet on the board. I think Spin Doctor is a good shout for what could be face down at the moment. Something like an upgrade that's not yet being used, whether that's a Managarm or a Jupstad, or even a Mavirus to help defend against Clot. If you have 2 fully ops early, it can be value enough to just start going wide, even if they're cards that you're not planning on using or rezzing that turn.
For sure. Looks like Diagonell is having some trouble finding some econ here. Just digging, trying to find anything to make a quick buck.
That's the blessing and the curse of Nova. You have access to so many cool cards with so many cool effects, but it can be hard to time getting those cards at the windows that you need them. There's plenty of econ in the deck, whether it's short gamples or creative commissions, bravados, any econ card you want, liberated accounts, you name it. It's probably in there. You just have to find it.
You have to find it. You have to find the right one. And I don't know. Whenever I build a Nova deck, I get up to like 30 cool cards, and then I'm like, surely, I can fit in 3 more cool cards, and then the 12, just like a couple econ cards, just to round it out, will be enough. That is not in fact true, but it is a way to build a Nova deck. Looks like we got Palangi coming down here. Interesting to see Palangi before Icebreakers, but got to get it down at some point.
Right, because it had fires counters.
Absolutely. It can be tough when you spend time digging in your deck, especially when your cards are all one-ofs, to decide what stays in your hand and what gets discarded. So knowing that a Palangi could potentially make whatever breaker that Diagonell finds next go the extra mile might mean that's why it makes the cut here.
Yeah.
I don't know which ones to get rid of.
That's also just the other hard thing with Nova, like you had mentioned. Just knowing what you can discard, what am I going to need later this game, is such a hard call. Which is why whenever you find cards in the wrong order, which seems to happen more often than not, there's a lot more wrong ways to order your cards than right ones. Looks like discarding a Copulation. I think that's probably a fine discard here. A lot of the cards in A-side don't have super high trash costs. You're only saving 3-ish credits if you're doing that. The real reason I think to keep it around would be to try to snipe a fully operational. But with 2 already in the bin, I think it's a pretty safe discard.
Definitely. I think the most valuable grab with Copulation there would be something like a Wage Workers.
Yeah.
But we see the Cohort Guidance Program res fired to get
and a 5th server.
Draw. Oh no. Is this another fully op coming?
No, it looks like just ASA install, Advance. That, to me, reads like it reads like an agenda push, but specifically it reads to me like trying to push out a 5-3 here. The salvo testing seems most likely, could certainly be an Ikawa, but you really don't want to score an Ikawa by install advance this early, especially whenever you have, a cohort on the board that you can use to push it a little bit more safely.
I was just thinking the same thing. I mean, even if you had something like an off-world office or a Vitruvius you want to counter on, or even 2 counters on, cohort would let you do that with only 1 extra advancement on the board. So you wouldn't have to telegraph quite so much how high value this push might be. It also feels a little gutsy to do so behind 1 ice, but without an icebreaker scene and some low credits on the runner side, feels fairly safe.
Feels pretty safe. I mean, it is Nova, so they're always going to have the inside job in their hand, and as soon as, the inside job goes off, you run low on money, and so they diversion you, and that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, right? You get it. Okay.
Nothing you can do about that except, play another fully op and you'll be right back up to money.
Yep.
One thing I want to shout out here about Wenjong, first of all, we were thrilled that he made it down from the Toronto area, but he's known for playing Iswak, especially with making 4th place at the American Continentals last year with Iswak, an ID that many had discarded. So it was a surprise to see him here with Asa, and I think that will give us a clue. He talked about later about why he chose this deck and what the origin was.
Looks like he had a Spin Doctor pot. This is a run on Archives, so Wenjong's probably shuffling back a couple of agendas here. Let's see what else is in Archives during this run. And also, I think I saw a salvo testing drawn off the top of that Spin Doctor there for just a second. So this looks like a core damage Asa, unless I'm mistaken. And that is another good piece of evidence for that.
And there we go.
Yeah, Nightmare Archives. Whenever you access this, even if it's in Archives, so this is one of the few real Archives traps we have in Netrunner currently, you have to either add it to your score area as an agenda worth -1 points, or else take a core damage. Whenever you steal, or I guess it's not steal, but whenever you have to take a Nightmare Archives, are you usually taking the core? The first one here.
The first one is a tricky decision. It depends on what you think the payoff is going to be. In a trap-style deck, I sometimes am not too worried about taking, -1 agenda point. But when you have a lot of payoff for core damage, taking that core can be a risky proposition. I think a lot of players will take core damage for the first one. Going down 1 hand size is not too big a deal, but it's when you have to take that second core damage, or even the third, that you start being forced to put it into your score area.
Yeah, at that point you're not super thrilled about having to take the second core for the ontological, moving it to be able to be fast advance, and even the third there. At that point, it's less that they can install advance the ontological. They were going to get out of their hand anyway. The real issue there is when you take the third core damage, you have 2 cards in hand at the end of every turn, and it's just not fun.
No, it's suffocating. I mean, hand size is something we don't often think about, other than drawing up to defend yourself against, some fearsome Jinteki ice. But playing the game on 2 cards, having to spend a lot of time drawing, a lot of time discarding things that you probably really want, it can be very difficult to dig yourself out of that hole.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like Wenjong just went install a upgrade. You can only just see a tiny bit in the corner there. Went install an upgrade. Issa install an ice. Install another card in the remote. Maybe he's got the third fully op ready. And 1 click left, it looks like. And advance again. That is scary. That, to me, looks like a salvo testing on a Jupes Tot if I've ever seen one.
Definitely. What a scary proposition, but also a little bit of like a bold one, almost like a greedy play from Wenjong in a nice way. I think he seems to be setting up for some maximum value here. We're scoring off the salvo testing, which will immediately do 1 core damage, and then firing the tube stat, which will do another core damage. And depending on whether Cohort fires or not, he's got 3 advancements in the agenda. With Cohort, he will only have to spend 1 more click to advance and score the salvo, which could then let him score another card or set up another push right after.
Right.
I wonder if
I think that lets him set up a push right afterwards is what I think is going to happen. The other possibility here is instead of scoring, I think it's also possible that he just top decked the Juke's God and figured, I might as well get the second core out of it just because of how important the second core is whenever you've got 3 ontologicals in your deck.
Yeah, I'm still gonna play it, and I'm just gonna use one of my cards.
Absolutely.
4.
Well,
Now,
Carpe here, Carpe Diem, choosing not to run, it looks like. Probably scared of another Nightmare Archive, or maybe just deciding where it maps to, not sure yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the mark is currently going to be. Oh, looks like it might be HQ.
It looks like they're mapping the dice right now. It looks like Archives.
Oh no.
We'll see. Is this the second Nightmare Archives? No, that is. I think that is Cat Shen's Skunkworks.
That's correct. Yeah, Catchen's Skunkworks. One of my favorite alt arts, actually. Cat's work is excellent. You should definitely go check out all the stuff they do for Netrunner and Beyond. But that was certainly a risky run on Archives when you could see another Nightmare very, very easily.
Yeah, for sure.
So for my last and final play.
We were talking about this earlier with the Nightmare Archives, whether taking core or the -1, and you mentioned that the -1 really impacts your stealing pattern, and I think it helps defend against stealing some of the 5/3s off of central servers that a deck like this could be weak to.
Yeah, this kind of, in a very roundabout way, provides a little bit of defensive power to your salvo testings, because salvo testing is just the worst 5/3 to try to score. It doesn't refund you at all. It doesn't protect itself. It's great once it's in your score area. It's the best 5/3 there. But anywhere else, it is just absolutely terrible. And so having something that can just offset it a little bit so that it's not a 5/3 that the runner has to do nothing other than touch to steal. At the least, it's gonna help you not lose in 3 steals. Very possibly. All right, looks like advance, and is that going to be the Jupestad res? It is. Oh, and it looks like there's another upgrade there too. So this was Skunkworks, Jupestad, and 2 ice.
Wow.
I guess it could be. I guess it could be another. It could be something else, but it probably Skunkworks. And that is a salvo testing and a Jupestad score. So 2 core here, opening up ontological dependence as a fast advance option on top of the Jupestad, allowing the next one to be a 1/2. And it is, if you can get the God Hand, you can of course do install, advance, do the core, install the last ontological, and score out from there. It's not common, but it happens.
It happens, and it feels good for the corporation, and it feels terrible for the runner.
It feels so bad.
Speaking of feels bad, the 2 cards that were just taken out of Diagonell's hand were the Inside Job and Jailbreak would be the card, which would have been a great way to either try and sweep HQ or help fight your way into that heavily defended remote server.
Right, especially with Wenjong only on 10 credits here, you can actually make some good plays and actually get past some ice with that inside job, but no more unless Diagonell's got some recursion. Katorga would not be that weird to see in a Nova deck, since you only have 1 copy of each card, so getting to play that 1 copy in extra time while making a run would be reasonable. Looks like a run on R&D here, just trying to put some pressure on. There's a Jaguar R&D.
Oh, no.
Are we on threat or Jaguar threat 4?
Jaguar is threat 4, and I believe Wenjong has only scored 3 points out so far.
So we're good on that front, not having to lose a click or take a tag. But Noelle is going to be taking a tag anyway, and since she is tagged, she will take the core from the second Jaguar sub, and this will be the third core. Hitting a... I am forgetting the name of that card.
That card is an Exer, if I'm saying that right. E-X-E-R. I believe it's a card from Rain and Reverie, and it lets you access additional cards on R&D, but I believe it's also a virus?
It's a virus that gets purged, right? So if they just... It doesn't have counters or anything, but like Quad, it just goes away.
Exactly.
Looks like a Gatekeeper on top, I think. Couldn't quite tell with the glare. Probably the best ice in... I would hazard the best ice in the game, but at least in HP, I think Gatekeeper is in the running for the best ice. Up there with Brawn. Just basically saying you can spend $1 trillion to get into the server, or you can wait a turn. It's up to you.
Absolutely, and HP I think is the best at forcing and kind of punishing those small windows with extreme efficiency, saying, you know, you have to get in right now, and I can make that so difficult for you with Managarm, with Gatekeeper, with even Ikoa defending itself.
Absolutely. And with salvo testing here, I think that is the ultimate punish. That is when you really want to use a Gatekeeper. It says, get in on this turn, or you're going to be playing with a crippled hand size for the rest of the game. And you're going to, every time I score an agenda for the rest of the game, take even more core.
Absolutely. I mean, we see that punishing effect happen right now with Diagonell. Force under 2 hand size just had to discard a mutual favor.
That's so rough. That's rough. Looks like it is a compile and... Can't quite see.
I wonder if it's a creative commission, but I can't quite see.
Yeah. With Wenjong, we have install, advance, and advance, pushing out either an ontological or a bifurcation. Elbigar bifurcation, when it's 2-1 that when you score, lets you de-res something. Looks like de-resing the Nico, which keeps the money on it. So when Wenjong re-reses that, it will get 9 more credits. And then also dealing another 2 core damage. One from the salvo testing and another from that Jupstad grid, which Diagonell wasn't able to deal with. There is... I don't know that card. Is the compile, and I don't recognize that one.
The mysteries of Nova.
Could it be anything?
I think with that, I think Wenjong is stealing the game.
Yeah, this is rough here. Technically you're only on 4 points, but was 0 hand size at this point?
That's correct.
And with zero hand size and 0 consistency in your deck, it's just a not great time. Now that said, we do have our Sentry Breaker down. We have Carmen, and we have a Sentry on R&D. So not totally out of the game. Can win through random accesses on Centrals, but it's gonna be a slog, especially with that -1 point having to take a total of 8 here.
The nice thing is that even though you're on such small hand size, there isn't that many threats to worry about that could immediately kill you. A Resba virus is probably the most dangerous thing, because if you hit an archive memories, you can choose to add a score area, and I don't think that this list is running any traps, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone found a way to fit enough influence for Snare. I think that would close a lot of games quickly.
Yeah, for sure. I guess the other issue here would be the next score is game point. Not because you go to 7, but because the runner goes to -1 hand size, or rather just takes damage and can't discard.
That's correct. I know that core damage doesn't kill
I do know that you
until you
try
go
to
to
use
negative
Spin
hand size at the
Doctor
end of the
whenever
runner
you
turn,
have
where you
more cards. So I'm
can't
gonna try to
discard
go
down
cards.
to negative
I'm gonna
hand
run
size.
out of cards.
But if you have no cards in hand and you take core damage, does that flatline the runner?
That will flatline the runner.
Really hope
At that point, it is treated the same as net damage. You try to discard a card, you cannot, and you lose the game.
These cards get trashed. Can I just?
So I think Diagonell's only hope is to control the top of R&D, but then also have to
I
sweep
guess I'm going to put
HQ. And I think without that,
And
we
unfortunately,
might only
she's
have a
already
few turns
discarded a legwork. We saw that earlier, and that looks like an Amina discarded.
that's correct. Quite expensive, but very powerful code gatebreaker.
There's Nico coming back with another 9 credits. Getting that extra level of verification value. I guess the other main target in this deck would be Spin Doctor.
Definitely. It's a nice trick to see pulled on the Nico, and I think that Nico, as well as the cohort, are the load-bearing pillars of ASA economy for Wenjong right now. I think one of the best
And there's the
ways
fully
to-
up for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At this point, you can just dig for anything. If you hit the ontological, you just win. Unless this is the last click, I'm not sure. But if you find the ontological here, you can just install and instantly score it.
So what's the counterplay here? I would think that, especially when ASA gets low on credits, some of these combos can be quite expensive, or if you trash some of the econ pieces like Cohort or Nico, you could slow the game plan down. But just drawing one fully up with this many servers.
There it is.
Puts you up
There's the ontological, instantly scored, and flatlining.
And there's the handshake. Well done and well played from Wenjong. We could see that the switch off of Iswak has paid off at least for round 1 of the 2025 Pittsburgh District Championships. Great work from both players. Sometimes your deck doesn't cooperate with you in the way that you want it to.
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely hard to run the essentials there. You really don't want to be running through drafters and Jaguar undies just to get single accesses, and so it seems wise to hold back. But you can't win the game if you don't touch cards, and Wenjong did a good job of making sure that there were relatively few cards touched.
Absolutely. Thank you all for joining us for this first match. We are going to be continuing the series with every round recorded for this tournament, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask all of you, invite all of you to join us in June for the Pittsburgh Megacity event.